Welcome to Cave Cooking 4. My name is Karen Hood and I'm going to teach you how to mess with your meat. In front of me are a few things that we're going to be showing you in our video. I'm going to show you how to make fresh homemade pastrami and corned beef. I'm going to talk about wet cures, dry cures. I'm going to talk about making beef jerky or any kind of jerky with any kind of lean ground meat. And we're going to be smoking salmon, and I'm going to be talking about wood chips and how to make your propane stove into a smoker. And we're also going to be discussing how to make Italian sausages and discussing different sausage casings and different kinds of stuffers that you can buy, as well as much more. So enjoy the video. Making pastrami and corned beef is a way that our ancestors used to preserve meat before they had refrigeration. Now, refrigeration is only about 100 years old, and all they did to preserve this meat or cure this meat is take a piece of meat, whatever meat they had, add sugar, salt, spices, and nitrates to it, let it sit to absorb all those ingredients, and it basically stopped the decay of the meat, or it at least slowed it down and kept those nasties out. So let's get on to preserving meat by making corned beef and pastrami. The first thing we're going to do is make the cure mixture. It's going to be a dry mixture, and I'm going to start with a product by Morton. It's called Tender Quick. You can get this at any supermarket. It's less than $5 for this 2-pound package, and this is a quick cure. It's a dry quick cure, and what it contains is salt, sugar, nitrate, and nitrite. And it not only preserves the meat and adds the salt to the recipe, it keeps the meat pink, so you can keep it in a cure in the refrigerator for a long time without the meat turning like brownish color. So, and what's really great about this is it only takes 1 tablespoon of this per pound of meat. So this is going to do over 60 pounds of meat, just this 2-pound bag. So our recipe is for a 5-pound piece of meat. And so I'm going to add 5 tablespoons of Tender Quick to our mixture. 2, 3, 4, 5. Like I said, you can get this anywhere. Now I'm going to add the spices. I'm going to start with a half a teaspoon of granulated garlic and a teaspoon each of allspice. This is a teaspoon of ground bay leaf, teaspoon of powdered paprika, teaspoon of pepper, and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. This is going to tenderize the meat and give it a great flavor. So we're going to mix that up really well. This is going to be a dry seasoning. We're not adding any extra moisture to it except what's already in the meat. And so we want to mix that in really well. Pastrami is nothing more than smoked corned beef, and they're both made with beef brisket. So let's get started. One of the things that I always keep with me, whether I'm backpacking or in the kitchen, is my latex gloves. And these latex gloves are really inexpensive. They're less than a penny each in bulk. You can get them at any drugstore in the medical section or at a warehouse store in bulk. And what they do is they keep my hands from contaminating meat and help my hands to stop from being contaminated by meat when I touch it. And when you're finished with them, if you need your dry hands, all you do is turn them inside out and you've got your free hands. You don't need any water to wash them off, and the meat's clean and your hands are clean. To prepare the meat, you have to get as much of the fat off as possible. Generally don't recommend cutting towards yourself, but for camera purposes I'm doing this so you can see what I'm doing. Now it's time to add all of the ingredients to your brisket. You want to massage it in really well, and you do want to use all of it. you want to just make sure that that's all in there. And what you want to do is make sure you cover all the crevices, all the sides, because this is going to cure the meat. And this is what's going to give it the flavor of the corned beef and the pastrami. If the meat's too dry and all the spices can't stick to it, just take a little bit of water, put your hand in, and lightly pat it. This will make sure that you have enough moisture to use all of your ingredients. Just helps those spices stick. Now that we have the spices on here, we need to put it in a baggie. And what I do is with large cuts of meat like this, you can get a 2-gallon zip-top bag. You can get these at any grocery store in the zip-top section or the baggie section. Now all we'll do is we'll put this meat inside this baggie. Get this out of the way. Now I can take these off. And we're going to push all the air out of it as much as possible. And we're going to keep it in the refrigerator. And this recipe calls for a curing time of 5 days per each inch of thickness. And this is about 1.5 inches, so this is going to take about 7 days to cure. So you can always leave it in longer, just don't leave it in shorter. Longer is always better if you're going to leave it in the refrigerator and you're going to be gone for a week or something. You can just leave it in there, it'll be fine. So what I like to do with these zip-top baggies is put the date that it's going to be ready on. I'll put ready on and then the date, so I don't have to put it on a calendar or go, gosh, what day did I put it in the refrigerator? You'll already have it ready, and if you go on vacation and you come back and you see it in there and that date is already passed, you know that it's done curing and it's ready to go ahead and cook. So we're going to keep this in a refrigerator at least 40 degrees for around 7 days. Fresh sausages don't require any preservatives. They only last about 3 to 4 days in the refrigerator. If you're going to make fresh sausages and you're not going to eat them within 3 to 4 days, put them in your freezer and they'll last about 2 to 3 months. And the reason I say 2 to 3 months is because that's about how long your spices are going to be fresh and they're going to be at their peak flavor for. You can keep it a little bit longer in there, but the spices won't taste the same. There are many different kinds of fresh sausage, but you might know this and you might not. Ron and I are both Sicilian, so the choice today that I'm going to make is Italian sausage. There really wasn't much of a choice here. We had to do Italian sausage. We love Italian sausage. We eat it weekly. We're making Italian sausage, okay? So what we have here is we have a container of Italian sausage that I bought online. It's about $8. It does about, that was $8 plus shipping, so between $8 and $10 for this. And this contains enough to do about 50 pounds of sausage. But I have a more economical way for you to make it at home with spices that you already have in your spice rack. So here we go. We're going to start out with some salt. Please don't use iodized salt in your sausage making recipes. The iodine can discolor your sausage and it can make it taste funny. So what we recommend is to use a coarse kosher salt. Kosher salt has a fabulous flavor and it doesn't contain any iodine, and you can find it in the supermarket section in the salt section. It's just a little bit coarser than the iodized table salt that you're replacing it with. This recipe is enough to make 10 pounds of Italian sausage. And what you're going to start out with is 5 tablespoons of coarse kosher salt. Then you're going to add 1 tablespoon of cracked fennel, 2 teaspoons of coarse black pepper, 1 tablespoon of crushed red peppers, 1 teaspoon of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of caraway seeds, and 1 teaspoon of slightly crushed coriander. And there's your mixture. And the last thing is 2 cups of water, and I'll show you what to do with that. With any sausage making recipe, it's a good idea to have your spices ready to go before you start grinding your meat to make your sausage. Now what do we do with that water? What we're going to do is add it to a blender and add the spices to it. and blend it up. Now why do we do this? Because the water and the spice mixture makes it easier to incorporate these spices when you add it to the ground meat mixture.
Okay guys, this is where you kick the little lady out of the kitchen and you take over. Because it takes power to run a meat grinder. And this is your traditional meat grinder. A big old mouth, heavy duty gears, and a grinding plate right there. And you just turn this sucker about like this and it starts grinding the meat. It pumps right out here. Now I got to tell you something. You can't just mount this on a breadboard, because if you do, you're going to rip the wall right out of the house. These things take a lot of horsepower to run. Speaking of horsepower, a real man doesn't use a toy. Look! This is a grinder. Look at this baby. 1.5 horsepower. 60 pounds of killer motor. Oh man. This thing's so powerful, you could grind a whole dog in one sitting. Look at this. It even comes with a tray. It sits right on there. And this, that's so you don't shove your hand down in the hole. Oh, yeah. Oh man. Big things make me happy. But calm down. There's something that a lot of ladies have in the kitchen. It's the KitchenAid. This too is a grinder and a sausage stuffer. Now you might notice on this baby here, it's got this nozzle sticking out of here. They don't tell you when you buy your little KitchenAid that you too can stuff sausages. Now before we get into that, let me explain something to you. In order to make one of these babies work to grind meat, you've got 3 major parts. These parts right here. You've got the screw that drives the meat down into the cutting edge right here in this little star that hits the back side of this plate. And it looks something like this. The screw, or the cutting blade sits like so, and the faceplate sits like this. So when it turns, it grinds the meat, and the screw shoves the meat through little holes right in the end. Now, when you're stuffing a sausage, you simply leave the cutting blade off, forget the faceplate, and add this little gizmo right here. Ah, come back here, you. Where'd you go? Oh my God, where'd you go? Ah. Oh no. There it is. That's it. Yeah, that's it right there, that thing. That is part of the KitchenAid sausage stuffer. Let me show you how this thing goes together here. It just fits right in the end about like so. And you take the rest of the sausage stuffer now, plug that baby on like this, and you can see it's got its little cone ready to go so you can stuff your meat. And then if you were really lucky, you got a meat tray with it. You slide that baby on and you are ready to shove it. Now how do you like that? You know, some of these shots really take a long time. But let me tell you something else before I start talking about that moaning and groaning. You know, my hair grows fast. This thing is part of a KitchenAid sausage stuffer thing that only costs $9.95 for the whole thing. That includes a little gizmo and the forcing cones and all the other stuff you need to have. Now if you run out and you buy some of these big old red cones like this one costs $11. $11! And look, you get a neat little box if you buy it for the KitchenAid. So that's it right there. The KitchenAid is probably the best answer for you meat stuffers out there.
Thank you, Ron. And as you can see, I am 7 months pregnant and I am going to have my hands full. Now we're going to have a nice and friendly discussion about pork butts. Pork butts actually aren't the pork's butt. They're on the shoulder. Don't ask me why, but they've been called the, what do they call it? They call it the Boston butt, the Boston roast, pork butt roast, pork shoulder, Boston butt. I mean, who can decipher? I went to look for pork butts in the supermarket. And all I could find was shoulder roast. And so finally I had to go up and ask the meat person in the back there and ask him, can you show me where the pork butts are? And she took me right to the shoulder roast. So, you know, a pork butt just means shoulder roast, okay? So now that you know what a pork butt is, Here we have 2 5-pound pork butts. And our recipe calls for 10 pounds of pork butts. So we have enough pork butts for 10 pounds of Italian sausage. And the reason that you use pork butts for this is because of the amount of fat that's in them. Pork butts have a lot of fat in them, and when you make sausage, you do want to have fat in there. If you don't have fat in your sausages, your sausage will be too dry, and it's not going to be good to eat. Often, you might know this, but often when you get a turkey sausage, they have to add fats to it from pork or other animals just to make it so it's juicy enough for it to be edible. So this is a real good combination of meat and fat at the same time. So now what we're going to do is grind it up. Now this is a knife. It's a pork butt knife. All right, that's about it. Time to grind. The next thing I want to talk about are the different kind of casings that are used for sausage making, and I've broken them down into edible and non-edible. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is the fibrous casing, and this is called a fibrous casing, and this is the kind you usually find on hard salamis. When you cut your salami, you have to take that outer skin off. That's what this is, and you can see when it comes, it's nice and dry. You have to soak it in water in order to make it pliable enough to stuff. You can eat it. It doesn't taste very good, and it's going to come out the same way it went in. You're not going to digest it. I wouldn't recommend eating it. The next thing I want to talk about is the wild game bag. This is a plastic bag, and it's very similar to the ones that you buy at the supermarket where you buy a 1-pound ground meat, whatever that meat is. And what's really neat about these is that they're plastic. You don't have to soak them. They're ready to go. And in order to fill them, it's very easy. You just stuff it on the end of your stuffer, and you stuff them in sections. You turn your stuffer on, and as this section becomes full, you let go, stuff a little bit more until you're done, and then you tie it off at the end. These are the edible casings. These are manufactured, and these are natural. The manufactured ones are made with collagen, and the way that they make these is they use skin from beef to manufacture the collagen out of it to make this. What's good about these is you don't have to wash them or clean them in any way. You just stick them right on your spigot and fill them. They're uniform, and they're thick enough that they're good for smoking meats. They're not going to rip like a lot of the really thin natural casings will. And these are cheap, and they're readily available. Now these are hog casings, and you can buy many different casings. You can buy sheep casings or hog casings, but they are natural. They're basically intestines that have been cleaned somewhat and then salted. So when you get them, they're going to come in a case like this, and you can either refrigerate them or not. You just need to read the outside of the bag. But they do need to be cleaned, and they need to be soaked before they are usable, and I'll show you how to prepare them right now. The first thing you need to do is take your natural casings out of the bag and separate them. Now this is a big mess. It's stinky, smelly, and gross. But it does come like this. This is how it's going to come. You can see it's just a mess. And you have to separate all these little intestines. And as you can see, some of them are quite long. So what the heck am I going to do? Some of these are going to be 10, 20 feet long because they are natural intestines. And, oh good, I found one. And when you get one, what you want to do when it's all by itself is put it in a little bundle, and then you know it's all by itself. And occasionally, yeah, like most of the time, you're going to find one end of the intestine and you're just going to keep pulling and it will break. And if it doesn't break, you're going to get so frustrated that you're going to want to cut it. So if you don't want a sausage that's going to be 20 feet long, that's okay. You can cut it off wherever you want. And this is a seriously stinky deal here. Too bad you don't have smell-o-vision. This is really rank. Oh. The next thing you want to do now that you have your little bundles is you want to take your intestine bundles and wash them off in the sink. And you just want to make sure you get all that salt off of there. These really do stink pretty bad, but you can wash off most of that smell in this process. I'm going to turn it on a little bit slower. Then when you washed off the outside, you take one end, and it looks like it's going to be impossible to open up one of the ends, especially with these gloves, but you can. And when you do, I've got it open now, you add water to it. You put it on the spigot. Because you want to wash out the inside of the casing too, and you can see how the inside of the casing gets water in it. And now what you do is hold on to the end. It's kind of slippery, little bugger. Hold on to the end and you just squeeze it down. And you repeat this process about 2 or 3 times. And you can see how much extra work it takes to work with natural casings rather than the collagen casings, because you don't have to do any of this if you use the collagen casings. After you're finished washing the casings, you want to soak them, and a lot of times the instructions on the outside of the package say to soak them in water, but I like to soak them in beer because this removes the residual smell from them before you start stuffing with them. Because it's easier, I've divided this ground meat into 2 5-pound sections here, and I'm going to add the spices, half of the spices to each one, and then I'll combine them. It'll just be easier this way. That's about half. That's about half. Ooh, get all those chunks in there. And now it's just manpower. You just mix it with your hands. Oh, that smells so good. Woo, my hands are getting cold. Now I'm going to combine both of these, and you can see as we, after we added the water, how easy it is to work. This makes it go through the stuffer more easily and makes it easier to stuff those casings with. A good rule of thumb after you've added your spices to your meat mixture here is to stuff it and have it in the refrigerator or cooling in the freezer within an hour. You don't want this raw meat out at room temperature for very long. Another thing to think about is this is the last time you're going to have a chance to adjust your spices before you actually stuff these into the casings. So you can take out a patty and fry it up and taste it, see if you need to add any more spices before you stuff your sausages. Ooh, it's going to be hot. Oh my gosh, that's great. Yum. Yum. The next step is to add the casing to the funnel. If you find that you're having trouble putting your casing on your funnel, just go ahead and slip it off. And one of the things that I like to do is keep that open like that and add a couple tablespoons of olive oil to it. That'll lubricate down in there. You can see that olive oil in there. That's enough. Put that on there. And that olive oil makes it so that slips right on there. No jokes. When it looks like you've got enough on there and you still have more to go and you don't want to put it on there, just cut it off. Then what we're going to do is pull it back and we're going to tie a knot. Tie a knot right in it. And now it's ready for stuffing. You want to make sure that this skin back here, for lack of a better word, is up a little closer towards the end, because you're just going to be holding on to it at the end. And sometimes if it's all the way out here, it puts too much pressure on it. It could break this fragile stuff. It's not that fragile, but if it does get stuck, you don't want it to break. So we're going to go ahead and stuff this sausage. Takes a few minutes for that stuff to get down into that tube fully. Well, this is what 10 pounds of sausage looks like. We've got about 7 pounds that we put into the casings. I've got 1 pound here that I put into one of these plastic baggies that I'm going to save for a meal later on this week. And I've got 2 pounds saved out for dinner tonight. We're having spaghetti sauce. So let me show you how to make some links. Now all you do is find the end. Here you go. And what you do is wherever you want a link, just squeeze it gently and then twist it. Twist it towards you, then you'll always know that you're twisting the right way. Find another one and twist it. And then you just keep going. And then you've got your links. So that's the conclusion to making Italian sausage, fresh sausage. Now it's time to show you the easiest jerky recipe that I know to show you. It's a jerky recipe that I call Mom's Oven Jerky because my mom used to make it for us all the time at Christmases. She would buy us presents, but our favorite present was getting jerky. She'd wrap it up in little foil with a bow and we'd get it. But it's easy and it only has 4 ingredients and it requires no marination. And the 4 ingredients are a flank steak, soy sauce, granulated garlic, and lemon pepper. When you buy a flank steak at the store, it's usually wrapped something like this, with the leanest side out. But when you get it home and you unwrap it, the fat is usually underneath, and this is the fat we need to remove. It looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? Okay. The reason I cut off the extra fat is because the fat can go rancid and make the meat taste bad. Now I'm going to cut it into 1-inch strips. And if you notice, the grain of the meat goes this way. You see these strips going this way? So I'm going to be cutting with the grain. That means cutting the same way the grain is running. If someone told you you needed to cut against the grain, you'd be cutting this way. So we're going to cut it in 1-inch strips. You can really cut them into any size that you want. Just make sure that whatever size you cut them in is uniform, that they're all the same size, or when you dry them or cook them, they're going to be done at different times. You can keep it this way, but I like it a little thinner, and I like it thinner not only because I like it in smaller pieces to eat, but I like it because it cooks quicker as well, or more quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these in half again. And I'm going to pick one of these up here and show you. That's about how thick your piece is going to be. And they're going to decrease in size when you cook them. Cut these in half. They're going to decrease in size when you cook them, so keep that in mind too. If you cut them to the perfect size when they're wet like this, after you get done drying them, they could be so small that it'd be like eating toothpicks. The next step is just take your meat and make sure it's covered in the soy sauce and put it on your grill. And this is just, the grill that I'm using is a grill directly from the oven. And I haven't sprayed it with anything to stop these from sticking because there is still a little bit of fat in here, and when it's drying it will produce a little bit of oil and keep from sticking just all by itself. You definitely don't want to marinate this though, because if you did, even for a couple hours on these small pieces, it's going to be so salty you're not even going to want to eat it. So this will actually give it the perfect amount of salt and flavor. The next step is to sprinkle both of these, the garlic and the lemon pepper, on top of your jerky. You don't want to put too much on, but just be sure to cover them. And the reason I use granulated garlic is because it's easier to see how much you get on your meat, and it's also easier to control than powdered. Powdered comes out in clumps, and you end up getting too much on one and not enough on the other, and you can't really control it. And the lemon pepper, I'm usually pretty generous about the lemon pepper. You can go ahead and add them to your oven. I usually keep them about the middle section of the oven, and as you see, I have lined the bottom with foil because there are going to be drippings, and you don't want them unless you want to clean up the bottom of your oven. You're not going to want to let those drippings fall to the ground. So that foil will catch that. And now what you're going to do is set the oven. We're going to do bake to your lowest temperature. And the lowest temperature on most ovens is about 150. Some people have something called warm. That's usually 150. The setting called warm is usually 150 unless you have an older oven. But I'm going to leave that at 150. And I'm not going to shut the door all the way. I'm going to keep it open. And the reason I keep it open is because there's going to be moisture in here and it needs to be let out. We're not actually cooking in here. We want to dry it more than anything. And this is going to let the moisture out. And this is also going to let some of the fresh air in. So the temperature will be a little bit less than 150. And it's nighttime now. I'm going to leave this in here for about 8 hours. But I promise you, if you make this, you're going to want to come down here and get a little bite. That's what these little tiny ones are for, because they're going to be done before any of the other ones are done, and you're going to be able to take a taste test because it's going to fill your whole house with this wonderful smell, and you're just not even going to be able to wait until morning. So we'll come back in the morning and check this out. This jerky is done perfectly. I want to show you what I mean. When I take a piece of this jerky and I bend it, it doesn't crackle and it doesn't break. That's what you want. You want a nice juicy piece of jerky for this oven jerky. And another thing is, when you open it up inside, it's still a little moist and not too tender, but it's definitely dried. Yeah, this is going to be a nice, yummy treat. I want to show you how to store it now. We started out with about 1.5 pounds of meat. That's after I trimmed the fat off of it, and you can see it's lost over 50% of its weight from water after the drying process. This jerky does not need refrigeration, but when you put it away, I do recommend that you put some air holes in your Ziploc baggie so there will be air circulation so mold will not grow on your jerky and ruin it. Another way that you can store it is put it in some nice foil, but just cover it loosely so there's some air holes in here because you want any moisture that's in there to get out so it won't mold. Another tip, you can freeze this, and if you have a frost-free freezer, which is most of the freezers now are frost-free, just loosely package your beef in some foil with it open a little bit like this, and the freezer will actually draw the moisture out of it and continue to dehydrate it for you. To defrost this, just open up your package like this and let the air in because you want all that moisture that's in there to escape so it won't mold. Well, that's it for Mom's oven jerky. Thanks, Mom. Since we put our meat in the refrigerator, we've had a little development happen. I decided I couldn't continue filming, and so I took time off to have Jesse. This is our new son, Jesse John Hood, and he's 1 month old now, and now we're resuming our video. So let's get back to our instruction. Because we suspended the filming of this video, the meat ended up staying in the refrigerator for about a month more than the due date when it was going to be ready. So what we did was we took it out and put it in the freezer. And leaving it in the cure for a little bit longer isn't going to hurt it, but it is going to make it a little saltier. So let me show you how we're going to fix that. We took the meat out of the packages, and one of them I cut in half because it couldn't fit into the bag, and we've been soaking it for about 24 hours and changing the water frequently. This will get most of the salt out of it and get it ready for cooking. Remember that the meat for pastrami and corned beef is cured the same way. The difference between the two is how you cook them. So let's start with corned beef. First, you're going to take your meat, put it in your crock pot, and you can do this on the crock pot or you can do it on the stove. We like to do it in the crock pot because it's easier. I'm going to add 1 bay leaf and some ground pepper or peppercorns, whatever you have available. Then we're going to cover it with some water and put it on high heat for 3 hours. And make sure that during that 3 hours, check on it often and skim off all the foam on the top of the water. And after that 3 hours is up, we'll add the rest of the ingredients. You've seen how to make beef jerky with flank steak. Let me show you how to make it with ground beef now. And first off, you're going to start off with very lean ground beef. Now the beef that I've chosen for this recipe is a 4% fat. And you can tell the percentage of fat on the outside of the package by looking. This one says 10%. This one is 4%, which is also called 96% lean. The leaner is the better for this recipe. And the seasoning that I'm going to use is a seasoning and a cure. And the reason I'm using a seasoning with a cure is because we are using ground beef. And if you were to use this recipe with elk or some other kind of meat that you had to take to a butcher shop, I want you to know that not all butcher shops are inspected regularly and they don't fall into the same guidelines as USDA meat would. So you want to make sure that you get a cure in there to kill all the nasties inside of that ground meat. There are several different brand names that you can buy that have cures and seasonings, but I want to show you what's inside of one of these. This one happens to come with a neat little shaker. I'm not going to use that right now, but it comes in with two different packages. One is a cure, and that's with the nitrates in it that's going to kill the nasties, and this is just the seasoning. And inside of this particular package, there's this will make 15 pounds of meat, 1 pound at a time. And because we're just going to be using 1 pound of meat today, I'm going to look on their chart. I'm not going to tell you what the recipe is for this chart because every seasoning brand is different, and it'll show you how much of these to mix together to add to your meat. So you need to follow the instructions inside of your packet. After you've mixed your ground beef with the seasoning and the cure, you want to take a square, some kind of a square, what is that thing? After you've mixed your seasoning and your cure into your meat, you're going to want to take a square pan, any kind you can, and I'll show you why you're going to need a square one shortly, and you're going to line it with saran wrap or any kind of plastic wrap you have. This is going to, because we're going to be freezing this meat, and we want to be able to get it out of this casserole dish very easily. You're going to want to press it down thoroughly and get rid of all of the air pockets. After you're done, just cover it with your plastic wrap, press it down again, and put it in the freezer. Here's one that I made last night with the same seasoning mix, but I made it with 2 pounds of ground beef. And you can see how easy it comes out of the pan. I left this out for about an hour so it would come out easily. And so you're going to unwrap it, and we're going to be slicing this with a knife, or you can slice it with a slicer machine. You don't want to slice it too thin because this is going to shrink once you cook it or you smoke it. You can either cook this in your oven on a wire rack, or you can smoke it in your smoker. The other thing you can do with it is put it outside on a rack, and if you have nice weather outside, let it dry, air dry in the sun. This is why I want you to use cure when you make this type of jerky, because in the sun your meat is not going to be cooking, it's just going to be drying, and you don't want any kind of nasties growing in there. Here's a tip for you. Use an expandable window screen that you can get at any hardware store to put your meat on. Now this is expandable, and it also closes on top of your meat to stop bugs from getting it if you wanted to take it and dry it outside. The only thing that I recommend is to get one that doesn't have any plastic parts. This is a metal screen with wood and metal on the frame. Some of the screens are made out of plastic, so you want to make sure that your screen is metal or it's going to melt if you put it in your smoker or in your oven. And it's also good for outdoors because it keeps the bugs off of your meat. It's a winter day today, so I'm going to take this and put it in my oven. I'm going to put it on the lowest setting and keep the door open a little bit. I guess I'm going to have to keep the door open a little bit. It's a little bit larger than my oven. I'm going to put it on the lowest setting like I did before, and we're going to let it dry out until it's nice and dry and the fat has melted out of it. I just wanted to take a minute to show you how easy the sausage and sausage makers and spice makers have made it for you to make your own sausages. This is a little kit that I bought. It comes in a nice little box, and it contains enough spices in here to make 20 pounds of sausage, different kinds, and it also came with its own hog casings. This was all for one price. I think it was less than $10, I can't remember. But we can make sweet Italian sausage, Old West country, bratwurst, and Polish sausage. And it's all together, and it's got instructions in it and everything. One product you can buy. You can buy these online or in any outdoor store that carries sausage making things. Now this is really interesting because this is pepperoni mix. It takes 1 hour. You don't even have to smoke this. All you have to do is mix it, shape it, and bake it. And I'm going to show you what's inside here. It's a packet. It does contain a cure, and the cure is in the top portion here. Here's a divider, and here's the spices. And like I said before, when you use ground meat of any kind, you do want to use a spice that has a cure in it. And this is very easy to use, and you can have your pepperoni in an hour, and they also have salami mix that you can make in an hour. This is about as easy as it gets. They also have different sausage mixes. This one's ready immediately. All you do is mix this. This is country style sausage mix. You mix it and then you fry it up. You don't have to let it sit or anything. Another thing you can get, this one doesn't have a cure, but there's all sorts of summer sausage mixes that, well, this one does have a cure. This one you just mix. This makes, what does this make? Mix this contents with 5 pounds of meat and refrigerate for 12 hours. Then you stuff it into casings and you smoke it. You smoke it in your regular smoker. Very easy. They also have available a brine mix for any kind of fish that you want to smoke. So these are just a few things that you can get to make your smoking easier. Here's the finished product. I dried these in the oven for about 5 or 6 hours, but there is no set time. You just kind of have to feel them and see the consistency of them. If I had cut these any thinner, they would have been dry and brittle, so you do need to watch out for that. These were cut perfectly. These are sticking to the bottom a little bit, so I'm going to use a spatula to get these off of here. Ron likes this kind of jerky better than any of the other kind of jerkies that I make because it is easy to pull apart if you take it up in the mountains with you and you add it chunk by chunk to your stews or top ramen or whatever you're making up in the mountains. That'll rehydrate it, and it's also seasoned, so you don't need to add any seasonings, and it gives you a good protein treat up there. Very good. We used around a 2-pound piece of meat here, and it's been cooking for about 3 hours now, so we're ready to add our other ingredients. And I'm going to start with about a pound of carrots, and I just buy the kind at the store that are already prepared. And we're going to add 2 or 3 small onions that are chopped up. You can add them whole if you want, but I like mine chopped up. And then we're going to add some potatoes. I'm roughly adding, I think, about 6 potatoes to this, small potatoes. And we're going to fill this thing up pretty quick, aren't we? And then we're going to try to add a whole head of cabbage. It looks like a lot, but the cabbage really boils down. So we're going to just smash it all in there. And boy, it's going to be good. It smells so good. I can add a little bit more. If you need to, you can add a little bit more water. I think I will add a little bit more water. And then we'll put the lid on it and let it cook until the potatoes are done. The steam from that should cook those vegetables. This is the other flank steak, and we're going to be making this into pastrami. The first thing you want to do is put a coating of spices on the outside. And this is equal parts of paprika, white pepper, and black peppercorns that have been smashed. You want to just rub that in thoroughly. The paprika is going to give it a nice color and as well as flavor. And I love the peppercorns. Pepper is one of my favorite spices. Be sure to get the ends. Now that we have the pastrami seasoned, I'm going to put it aside and I'm going to show you how to make a quick and easy foil pan to put your wood chips in. Start with heavy duty foil. And what you're going to need for this is foil, a bowl, a towel, and a fork. And what you're going to do is take your foil and put it inside the bowl. Any bowl will do, whatever shape you want to make it in. This is just really easy to make. And that's the shape of your pan. Nothing fancy, just something to put your wood chips in. Now what you want to do before you put your wood chips in is make a couple of holes in the bottom, because you want that oxygen to be able to get in there to those wood chips so they'll smoke, because that's the reason you're putting the wood chips in there, is to make them smoke and infuse that smoke flavor into your meat. This is pretty nice. It's got lots of nice holes in it. Now we just need to add our wood chips. Before we add our chips to our bowl, I just wanted to show you a couple of different kinds of chips that are available. This one is mesquite, and it's fine ground or fine shaven. And this one right here is hickory. And you can see these are in big chunks. Both of them are going to require that you soak them. And you can soak them per the instructions on the back of the bag. They both come in bags like this, and they're very inexpensive. You can buy them at any place where they sell smoking supplies. And they each give a different flavor depending upon what kind of flavor you're trying to impart into your meat. This particular mesquite that I'm using came like this, and this particular company comes in a choice of hickory, apple, alder, mesquite, or cherry. They're all hardwoods. They all have a good, nice flavor and different distinctive smells and flavors. So we're going to go ahead and add this mesquite to our bowl here. This has been soaking. It's nice and moist. We can add this to our heat source now. We're going to add these chips directly above the heat source. We only have half of this grill going right now. And if you've noticed, we've removed one of the grills here so we could get the chips to smoke underneath the meat, because we'll be putting the meat up here. You may wonder also why we have added water to the chips and why they recommend to make sure that the chips are moist when you smoke, because you do not want those to catch on fire. And if they were in there dry, if you leave them in there for any amount of time, they're going to catch on fire. So you want smoke from them, you don't want fire. So that's what the water does. We're going to close this and let that smoke start happening before we add our pastrami. We've preheated this oven to approximately 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and now we're going to add our meat. I'm going to add this right here, and as you can see, it's starting to smoke, and boy does it smell good. We're going to keep it at 130 degrees for either an hour or until the surface of the meat dries itself. After that, we're going to raise the temperature on this cooker a little bit more. By the way, you may notice that there's not a ton of smoke coming off of this mesquite here, but if you were here, you'd be able to smell how wonderful this smells. And the smell alone just lets me know that that smoke is in the air here, and that smell is going to the flavor from that smell is going to be imparted into our meat. So a little bit of smoking is okay. You don't need a ton of it in order for it to flavor your meat. This meat's been in here for about an hour, and as you can see, I put a little thermometer inside so we can get the inside temperature, and it's lukewarm right now. What we want to do now, since we have we've dried the outside of it, we want to gradually raise the temperature of the inside of this oven so the inside temperature of the meat is at 180, which is about the same temperature as lamb would be. So we want that to be up at 180. At that point, we will turn this off and take this meat out, and it's done. Let it cool at room temperature for a couple hours, and then refrigerate it until you want to eat it. Well, here's a finished pastrami. I went ahead and cut it up, and I did want to point out the nice pink color of this meat, and that pink color is there because we used the cure. If we had not used the cure, that pink color would not have shown up like that, and it just smells so good. You know what, I'm going to make a big old pastrami on rye with mustard sandwich. God, this looks good. Look at that. Doesn't that look good? Nothing like pastrami on rye. The next thing I want to show you is how to make homemade smoked salmon. And what we have here is a 3-pound salmon fillet that Ron caught in our stream up here. Really nice fresh salmon. And this is a real easy way to make your own smoked salmon. It's delicious. Now we started with doesn't look like a dry cure, but it is. We didn't add any water to this. This is all the natural juices from the inside of the meat here. And what I used for this 3 pounds is a 1-to-3 ratio of salt to sugar. I used 1 part kosher salt that's not iodized, and 3 parts of brown sugar. I used an eighth to a quarter cup of salt and 3/4 cup of sugar, and I dry rubbed it, and it's been soaking for 48 hours, and I've turned it about every 12 hours or so, and you can see it's turning a little bit translucent, and that's how you know it's time to smoke it. I usually smoke within 12 to 48 hours. What I'm going to do, I don't rinse it off before I smoke it, I just blot it. I blot this juice off of it to get it ready for the smoker. You don't have to get all of it off, just get most of it off. And this is going to be absolutely delicious. It already smells like smoked salmon. That's ready for outside now. Remember, this is a dry rub. I didn't add any extra water to this meat. I just took the meat and rubbed the cure on it of salt and sugar, and the juice you see here is the moisture from the salmon itself. It makes its own juice, so no extra water is needed for this recipe. We're going to use a more traditional smoker to smoke our salmon. Let me show you how this one works. It has 2 chambers, and if you're going to be smoking something like we are today, this is the chamber that you're going to put your heat source in and your wood chips. You can see those are already starting to heat up. We've got the charcoal briquettes below and the heated wood chips on top. There's a little hole that comes through here, and this is where the smoke is going to go to. And it hasn't quite made it yet, but it is kind of warm in here. It's already up to 150 degrees, and those this has been closed only for about 10 minutes or so. So we're heating up our grill a little bit before we put them in. This is where we're going to put our salmon. It's indirect heat and it's smoke. That smoke is going to travel from in there all the way up this flue. And as you can see, we can adjust the amount of airflow and smoke flow by opening or closing this. There's one more thing I want to show you, and that's over here. There's a vent right here that opens and closes, and this is where the oxygen and the air is going to go through to feed that fire, to go through to the salmon, to go up the flue. So that's how this smoker works. Now, if you wanted to, you could use this. You could not use the smoker and start your heat source, your charcoal briquettes in here, and just use this as a barbecue. But that's not what we're doing today. We're just going to be smoking this meat only. We're just going to go ahead and add these to the one side, the grill on one side that's closest to the fire. And if you noticed, I put the thicker side closest to the heat source because that's going to take a little bit longer to cook than the thin piece. And we're going to let that stay in here until it looks caramelized and a little bit brown.
What's the temperature? So it's still pretty warm.
Looks like it's about done. Well, the salmon is finished, and we have the finished product right here. We let it smoke until late into the night. It was about 10 degrees outside by the time we took it out of the smoker, and we did have to add some more chips to it and some more briquettes because they did die down a little bit, and we wanted that heat to keep going until it was finished. But here it is. I'll show you what it looks like. This particular recipe yields a harder and drier salmon than some other cures do, but this is a sugar and salt cure. And to eat it, you just take it apart, take a piece off here, put it in your mouth, and enjoy. This is an easy smoked salmon recipe that everybody in your family will love.